Hi everyone, welcome back to another video of CambiHub, and in today's video we'll be doing IGCSE Computer Science 047 in pseudocodes, the lecture 3, which is selection statements. Right, we'll be doing if statements, case statements, nested if statements, and at the end we'll be looking at the difference between sequence and selection statements. Right, what are these statements, what are their syntax, how do we use indentation in them, an example in using them, everything will be covered in this video. And if you like our videos, please do like this channel and subscribe the channel. If you want, you can join the community link from the description below. Right, all of the email IDs and our link for the learning portal is written here. It is also there in the video's description. This is Pranay from CambiHub, and welcome to today's video where we'll be doing selection statements. Right, let's start without a further. Starting with if statements. What are these if statements and what do we mean by these if statements? Right, there are three terms that we use in this if statements: if, then, else. These are all English terms, right? We use it in English also, right? Let's see a scenario, right? If I have to say you, right, if it is raining, then bring an umbrella, else don't bring an umbrella, right? Whenever I need to put conditions to you, right, how would I say it? I would say it in this way. I would say it using these three terms: if, then, else. If something happens, do this, else do that, right? Do something else. Sometimes we do have statements which only end with if and then. For example, if you don't get good grades, you won't get a new device. It's as simple as that, right? So we only use if and then here. There is no need to use else because it is self-explanatory. That if I get good grades, I'll get a phone. Because, right, I can say it in both ways, in a positive way or in a negative way. If I get good grades, I will get a phone. Or if I don't get good grades, I won't get a phone. But here we are only using if and then. There is no else here. Else is self-explanatory. Even though you can add it, but it's not needed here, right? So these are the three terms that we also use in programming for if statements. What is the syntax of if statements? You write if your condition, right? Leave a line, leave a space. This is called indentation. Indentation is really important. Why do we do it? It is to segregate different parts of the code, and it is predefined. It has been made by the person who created programming. So we need to agree on that, right? If you'll put your statement here, then you'll put your statement here. Else, right? If you see, this is if. I below this line I came to else, right? You will write your statement, right? And then end if. This is the syntax of if statements, right? Syntax of if statements, right? Now, suppose I don't want to write else, right? I can just simply ignore this part then, and this will be my syntax. Let's see an example of if statements. Let's write a code, right? The question says, check whether the user is a child or an adult. Right? This is the code that we need to write. So we need to write a code to check whether the user is a child or the user is an adult. How do we do this? In the previous videos, we understood data types and declarations. So please visit that video before we continue with this if you don't know what declarations are. So let's create a variable. Right? Variable could be age. Since we are checking age, let's create this variable age. So I have to declare this variable first. I will say declare age. Right? What would age include? Age will include a number. Hence, I will declare it as integer. Right? Now, I will run. I will output. Please. Output is always in double quotes. Whenever I have to put a text, text will always be in double quotes. So I need to output, please enter your age. Right? Please enter your age. then I'll input age. Now I will start using if statements. I'll say if age is greater than 18, right? If age is greater than 18, then output. What will I output? What will I tell my user? I will tell my user that you are 18, you are an adult. Right? This is what I'll tell my user. That's what the question says. I'm checking if the user is greater than 18. If the user is older than 18, then they are an adult. Right? Else I would output you are a child. Right? And I'll simply do end if. This is the simple example of using if and else statements. Right? Let's move on to a more complex example. Right? Let's move on to a more complex example. Now this is a bit complex code. Here we are going to use nested if. What is nested if? When we have multiple if conditions. For example, if this happens, then do this, else do this. Here we only have one condition. If that condition is true, then the person has to do this. Otherwise, you have to do something else. That's why we were only using if and else. But if we have more than two conditions, for example, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. If none of this happens, then don't do anything. Right? I have so many condition and lines. Here I use nested if. What is the syntax of nested if? Syntax of nested if is, right? Syntax of nested if is if statement, then do this, else if, this is the second statement, then do this. Okay, please take care of the indentation. Nested if is always in an indentation. If, do this, else if, do this, else if this, then do this, else if this, then do this, and at the end we'll use else and then end if. So whatever is the amount of other conditions, I'll keep on moving and I'll write all of those conditions. Even if I have 6 to 7 conditions, I'll use else if. Right? Let's see an example to understand it better. This is your syntax for nested if. Right? This is your syntax for nested if. Let's see this example. Now the question says, write a program to assign a student their grade based on their performance. So if the student scores between 90 to 100, we'll give A star, 80 to 89 we'll give A, and 70 to 79 we'll give B. Right? Okay, let's declare our variable grade as integer. Okay, one more important thing. How do you write a comment? What do we mean by comment? Whenever we are using Google Docs, there is an option to write comment, right? Pin a text and write a comment. We can do the same in our programming. For example, we want to make notes side by side and we want to tell some other, if I'm writing a program, but it will be edited by other programmers also. And other programmers have to see my code and I want to explain my code. I want somewhere that I can put some text which is not recognized by the system, which is not a part of the code. I can use double slash. I can put a comment anywhere I want. Whatever I write after double slash is not counted in your code. It would just be visible in your code to the other programmer. So that's how you put a comment. Right? Suppose you want to explain your code, right? You can, whenever you write a code, you can say, this is where I'm using declarations, right? This is where I'm using to calculate performance, right? This is where I'm using to output. Whatever your code is, based on that you can write comments anywhere to explain your code or to make notes, right? So these are text which won't be counted. We use double slash, right, to put a comment. Returning to the question, we'll declare the variable grade integer Then we'll put an output message. We'll output, please enter your grade. Right? We put an output message to please enter your grade. Then we input their grade, right? Because we have created grade as an integer, so we'll input their grade. Once you have inputted their grade, let's start with our if conditions. I'll say if grade is greater than equal to 90 and grade is less than equal to 100, then output you have scored, or let's just not, okay, score is A star, right? If your grade is between 90 and 100, your score is this. Else if grade is greater than equal to 89, is greater than equal to 80 and grade is less than equal to 89, right? Is less than equal to 89, then output score is B. Else, right? Now if two conditions we have written the if statements, obviously the third condition will be that their grade is less than 80%, right? That their grade is less than 80%. So I'll simply write an else, output score, this will be A, your score is B, right? So if you see, for the last statement, we didn't write any if condition. Why? Because we already know that if their grade is not between 90 to 100, or if their grade is not between 80 to 89, obviously their grade is less than 80, right? If their grade is not between 89 and 90, then obviously their grade is a B. So I don't have to write statement for that, right? I have checked for the first two statements. If their score is not between first two statements, and for the third statement, I'll simply write an output. If you have not scored an A star, if you have not scored an A, then that means you have scored a B. So this is nested if statements, and this is a slightly complicated example of using nested if statements. Let's understand case statements now. So let's understand case statements first. What are case statements? Right? So if statement is when we have to give conditions. Case statement is also when we have to give condition, but we can give options like 1, 2, 3. Instead of writing if this is, then this, else if do this. Instead of writing, these statements a complicated way, we can give options. Number 1, if this happens, then do this. Number 2, if this happens, then do this. Number 3, if this happens, then do this. So what is the syntax of case? What is the syntax of case? You will write case of whatever the variable we have to apply case to. For example, here in this situation we were applying to grade, right? So I'll simply write case of grade. If option this, then do this. If option this, then do this. If option this, then do this. Whatever the amount of options are. Otherwise, do this. End case. Right? So this is the syntax of case statements. Let's try the previous code for case statements. Now the previous code says we need to assign a grade based on the performance. So how will we do this? We will say declare grade. We'll declare grade as integer. We'll output please enter your grade. Right? We will input their grade we will input their grade, then we'll write case of grade 90. If they have scored a 90, or you can say case of grade, if grade is above 90, then output score is A star, right? Grade is greater than 80, output, okay, grade is greater than 80 and grade is less than 90, right? Less than 90. Then we'll output score is A, right? Score is A. Otherwise, right, same logic. If your grade is not an A star, it is not an A, then obviously your grade will be otherwise output your score is B, right? End case, right? So this is how you use case, right? Case is a relatively easier option because it consumes less space, right? Let's move on to the last topic of today's video, which is sequence versus selection. Let's understand the difference between sequence and selection. So what does sequence mean in general English, right? Sequence means order of steps, right? That is what it means in programming also. So logical flow of instructions executed one after another without any decision making or branching. Without any decision making or branching happening, without any changes, there's a logical flow of instructions which execute one after another. For example, A is 5, B is 6, sum of A plus B, output sum. What is this? This is a logical flow. There is no decision making happening here. Whereas selection is like we just studied, if else statements and case statements, write the examples here. Logical decision making that decides the path of a execution of a program. Right? These statements decide which path the program has to choose. For example, if age is greater than 18, then output this. So what is this? This is deciding the path of the program. Right? Before moving on to the next topic, few of you might be thinking, for case, why haven't I put otherwise? Like in if and else statements, else is optional, otherwise is also optional in case. Thank you everyone for watching this video. This was the lecture 3 of IGCSE pseudocodes. We'll be moving on to the next lecture in the next video. This is Pranay Arora from CambiHub signing off. If you have any doubts, right, you can comment us in the chat box or you can mail me at pranay@cambihub.com. Thank you everyone for watching and bye-bye.